Great to have a big crew of folks with us today. We've got from the Tribute Quartet, Josh Singletary, Gary Casto. How you doing, guys?
Doing great,
Good,
Robert. How are you?
Doing good. And from Daywind Records, Tiffany Noeker. How you doing, Tiffany?
Hi, doing fine. Thanks for letting me join in.
Hey, we're delighted to have you all. First of all, got to ask the guys, you're in this COVID-19 situation where things are definitely different from a performance singing ministry perspective. So what's it been like the last 2 or 3 months?
Wow, you know what? It's been tough because we like to do what we like to do, and that's to go out and travel, minister to the folks, and being in this situation. I've been in the industry for 37 years, and this is the first time, Robert, that I've ever experienced anything like this. So it's been challenging. Just trying to be prepared for when that day comes to go back out on the road, trying to maybe just do stuff with a new project, doing office work, whatever the case would be, just trying to stay busy, waiting for that moment to hit the road again.
I want to get some background on everybody first. I mean, we got to lay the biological groundwork before we forge ahead. So, Gary Casto, what part of the country are you from originally?
Well, I'm originally from Pocatalico, West Virginia, and but I've been away from there for 30-some years. Actually, like I said, I've been on the road this year, celebrating 37 years in full-time gospel music.
Josh?
I'm actually from North Florida, but the completely different part of North Florida that you're from. It's funny. I tell people that I'm from Florida, and when we're down in Florida, and a lot of them go, "Oh, what part?" "We're from Fort Myers." And I go, no, North Florida. And they go, "Oh, the Panhandle." I go,
Yes.
No. The part of Florida that you pass to go to what you think is Florida.
That's right.
I'm from Rayford, practically southern Georgia, basically.
And I remember Rayford because that is where the prison is that you say still houses the, what do you call it? Not the gas chair, the electric chair.
Oh, Old Sparky is still there. They don't use it, but Old Sparky is still there.
All right. And Tiffany, I know you didn't expect us to, but we got to have some background on you because I'm going to come to you in a minute when we talk about the signing of Tribute Quartet to Daywind. So tell us where you're from and what brought you to Daywind.
Well, I am originally from just outside of Asheville, North Carolina, and I've been working for Daywind for about 5 years now as a radio promoter. And actually, I think that Gary Casto had a little part in me getting this job. So I'm very grateful to Gary because this is a job that I actually love.
Well, good deal. All right, guys. Tribute Quartet. You two were with the Wilburns, and the Wilburns end their music ministry in 2005. So you guys formed the Monument Quartet, which eventually becomes Tribute Quartet. Take me through that process. And two, the uniqueness in Tribute as compared to the Wilburns. To me, it is a completely different sound. So take me through that process.
Well, I'll start out with, in 2005, Jackie and Elaine Wilburn decided to retire. And Jackie was having some health issues, and they said, "You know what, guys, it's time for us to come off the road, and we want to pass the mantle over to you and Josh, and we want you to keep going on." And that's exactly what we did. We, with a friend of ours, we formed Monument Quartet. And actually, Robert, for 1 year, every month, I would call the promoters up and say, "Hey, we want to bring Jackie and Elaine Wilburn with us. What about us doing, a half set with Monument, half set as the Wilburn?" So we did that for 1 year to make sure that they had income coming in and still could be seeing the fans, being out there with everybody. So that's what we did from, I guess, and then in 2006, of September of 2006, we changed it over to Tribute Quartet, and our first date as Tribute was December 31st of 2006.
Why the name change? Was it a group change,
Well,
name change?
the group change, a friend of ours, Marshall Pugh, he just kept Monument, who we were traveling with. They were doing a lot of the mixture of gospel and country music and doing a lot more of like the fair dates. And Josh and I really wanted to be more part of the gospel side. And that's how that happened.
Josh, take us back to '05. Prior to that, had there been discussion that between you and Gary that, okay, if we ever leave the Wilburns, let's leave together, or did this just kind of creep up on you when they decided to disband?
No. When, like Gary said, Jackie's health was not good at all, and we were seeing the signs. They were seeing the signs. Discussions were being had on the bus, and that's when we had our discussions and said we've got to do something in case something bad happens. And then they decided to retire, so we kind of had a faux plan.
Well, really, it was planned with Jackie and Elaine.
It really was.
That's the reason why they passed the mantle over to us. They sort of helped us make a decision in creating a new quartet.
How did you get, though, it's a, I don't want to call it, well, it is a unique sound, but it is certainly a definitive change from the Wilburns. And I know that with the Wilburns, you got a female vocalist. You've also got a bass singer that's got a higher range versus a lower. But it is a definitive different sound. Was that by design or just by happenstance based on the singers that you put into the mix?
Well, I think you have to take into perspective, the Wilburns were an artist in their own right. They've been in gospel music for 40 some years. They already had a sound that was established and a particular style that was established. I was only there for the last 4 years. Gary was only there for the last 5 years. So there's not a whole lot we could bring to change what that was. However, in our own rights, we have our own different taste in music and taste in styles and whatnot. And so whenever we started the new group, that was the Wilburns. Now, what do we want to do with this group?
But Robert, one thing that made it sort of unique at the time when we was Tribute Quartet, at the beginning stages, we were with Chris White and Crossroads. So we were trying to find our sound. And one thing, because of having experience with a mixed group, a lot of our quartet arrangements was vocally arranged as if it was a mixed group, which that gave part of that different sound. And we've carried that on as Roger Talley has produced, and now Wayne Hahn, Gerald Wolf. We got a lot of different producers with a lot of different projects, but we've kept that unique voicing. A lot of our stuff is voiced differently than what a traditional quartet would be.
That is a unique approach to me, and it kind of leads me into the next question in regards to, and I'll ask you first, Gary, and then Josh, if you'll tell me as well, what in the 5 years for you, or 4 or 5, and same for Joel, what did you bring from the Wilburns? What one aspect can you think of that you brought from the Wilburns to the Tribute Quartet?
Yes, sir. That is so easy to answer. Elaine Wilburn from day one always says, son, remember one thing, when I'm long gone, you remember this. We are in the uplifting business. Mm-hmm. So you always approach every night on every stage that somebody's hurting, and our responsibility is to bring Christ to them and uplift their spirits. And
Josh,
that's what I've learned.
And Josh, same for you?
Oh, absolutely. I have to say that's the same. I mean, outside of my own personality, I mean, I was who I was there, and and I've always been who I was where I'm at. That whole mindset of we're here to help you get through another day. Yeah. That's our goal. And that's
and I think we can add to that too, is Wilburns were always known for great songs. It's true. About the song, mm-hmm. The song, important songs that are important, that are great songs with a great message. That's so important in what we do. And I think sometimes we as artists can get very lax in picking songs. Tiffany knows this where tribute's concerned. is that we're probably one of the hardest groups to get a cut with because we're so picky. You know, we listened, we really are. We listen to over 500 songs a year, Robert, to choose 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
2008, you're the breakthrough artist and have had tremendous success since. Is that somewhat of a surprise to you? I mean, not necessarily the success, but the aspect that it came so quickly.
Oh my goodness, I would say absolutely.
Yeah, especially when you take into account that it takes most new groups upwards of 15, 20 years to even get to a spot where some promoters now they're calling them instead of, you know, it's an interesting, it was a very interesting
I will say this, radio, radio promoters, pastors, worship leaders, our peers all embraced us so quickly. And like I said, I've been in it for a long time, and I have worked in all aspects of this industry, and I've never seen nothing like it. We were very blessed and honored.
Tiffany, 2014, Tribute Quartet signs with Daywind. What drew that collaboration together?
Well, I'll tell you, I actually came on board in 2015, so I kind of missed that transition period. But Gary and Josh and other members of the group had been friends of mine for many years. So when I joined Daywind, they were very kind and helped me with that transition into this new job. And of course, I was super excited to be able to promote their singles as well as the other artists there at Daywind. So I was just super happy to have some friends, on the Daywind team to help me through that transition. I was very excited.
Well, you mentioned earlier that Gary is maybe at least partly responsible for you being at Daywind. So how did that happen? Give us the backstory.
Gary, didn't you put in a good word for me?
Well, I will say, it was brought to my attention that Daywind was looking for someone to work in the radio side that had the right personality, had the right heart. And so I picked up the phone and made a call and said, I got the person for you.
And I'm so glad you did.
And after some good training, she was able to fill the position.
And Robert, one good thing about Tiffany and I talked quite a bit because years ago I'm telling my age, while I was on the road in the 90s, I was working radio as well with a company called Southern Communications. So it was just a great transition because Tiffany and I could always throw things off each other. Well, I remember this is what we used to do. And she said, well, what about this? So it's been a good relationship.
Right.
Where your music is concerned, who is the final say? You mentioned the 500 songs that you hear or listen to during the course of a year. Who's got the final say on the 10 that wind up on a project?
Honestly, ultimately, we hire the producer to direct the path. So you could say, ultimately, it's the producers, but it's such a collective decision that on a more general basis, I mean, it's the four singers and the producer and the record company that really go, okay, we all agree on this. We all rate each song, and we narrow until and then the ones that are hard to get to chisel away, that's the debate of, well, what message does this say? What kind of vibe is this song? What kind of blah, 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 blah. And then it's a very collective decision. It really is.
We will always if it gets down to the nitty gritty and it's between two songs, we will always let the producer make that final decision because that's why we hire them, for that direction. And normally, Robert, it normally takes about 2 sessions with the artist for we meet with Daywind, our Daywind family, our producer, the publishing side. We all meet, and normally it takes 2 sessions to finalize. With Tribute, usually 4 to 5 sessions. and Rick Shelton, the vice president of the publishing side, he will always say, well, we know this is going to be a long process.
It's true.
Well, it's that pursuit of perfection, right? I mean, you mentioned you're
Yeah.
perfectionists.
Well, and here's, I've always said this, is we're held accountable
We feel a responsibility.
because
Yeah.
every night when we walk onto that platform, we're accountable for what message we bring to the folks. When they leave home or leave that service and go back home and home to the service, back and forth, the thoughts that's in their mind after they've been to a tribute concert, we need to make sure that, I mean, we're accountable for what we put into their thought process.
You know, Josh mentioned earlier the fact that when you do decide what songs to sing, that you all agree. Do you always all agree, or
No,
sometimes?
no,
Okay.
no, no, no. No, I mean, you're talking about
No.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, potentially 7 personalities. I mean, how it's difficult to get 7
Yeah.
personalities to agree on a plethora of things, and to narrow down songs that we feel like are going to make an impact. It doesn't get heated, but it gets the conversations get in depth and detailed.
I would tell you something that was unique on this last project, Living the Stories. Josh said that we rate every song, and we do. And that's how we narrow a lot of them down. And when we got done with the very last session, I think it was number 4 and number 5. I remember at the time Scott Gaches was with Daywind, and he looked at me and he says, "Okay, tell me what your top 10 are." So I began to read down the top 10, and mine and Scott and the producer Wayne Hahn, it was the first time they said they'd ever seen that. All 3 of us had the exact same 10 songs.
Wow.
Yeah, which was very unique. Very unique.
So you were set for that project, at least.
Yes.
With no conflict.
No.
But now, is there ever a song where one of the members says, I don't want to do it. I don't like it. We're not singing it.
Yeah.
Well, they say they're not going to, they say they may not like it, but they don't say they're not going to sing it. There's a line.
and in respect to that song, sometimes not everybody in a group has a producer mindset. So when you're given we're given what's called a demo. All right, the songwriter has a demo produced so we can hear how the song goes. Well, it's a bare bones demo. There's not lots of times it's not a big band, not an orchestra, all that stuff. It's just bare bones, piano, guitar, whatever.
No arrangement.
Right. And sometimes it's hard to hear through that. And then it ends up 9.9 times out of 10, once they hear the final product, they go, "Oh, this is a good song." And we're like, yeah.
Not everybody has an ear to listen to,
Right.
to listen through.
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure.
All right, you go through the recording process. So now you're narrowing it down to a song that you released to radio. So I'm going to bring Tiffany in. Tiffany, do you play a role in what song is released to radio, or is it primarily, I'm just going to pitch whatever song you want to release?
No, actually, there is a team effort there that involves the artist, the team at Daywind, and together we decide on what's the best single to put out there. So I do put my opinion in, absolutely.
So is that decision, I'm assuming it includes Gary and Josh, right?
Of course.
Take me through the process on having new personnel come in, because I would assume that it is sometimes frustrating in that you get the sounds you want, you feel like you've ironed everything out, and then a member has to leave or leaves, and you have to go through the process of hiring somebody new. Take me through that process.
Well, with us, Robert, it's a little different. We've had some great talent, great talent. But I will tell you, in all the years that we've been as Tribute, I don't know how, 11 years, 12 years,
no,
13
13
years.
Yeah.
We've had some great talent, and but the last several people that we've hired, we've never tried out. I've always prayed about it. We've prayed about it collectively and individually. Even when Josh and a vocal teacher that we have. They'll say, you can't hire somebody. But there's been the last 3 or 4 of them, the Lord said, we hired them before we ever sang with them or even walked into a room together. It was all done by what he said to do.
You know, you mentioned something that I've got to admit, I've never even thought about, the fact that you do have, just as a actor or actress has someone coaching, you do look to others to teach so that you continue to enhance your skills. Is that
Oh,
true?
sure, sure. Our philosophy is, if you feel like you learned it all, you need to go home. Because especially in art, it's constantly honing in of a certain skill. You're constantly trying to make it better. Let's take an album for an example. This album was great, and the next one, it needs to be better than the last one. Well, how do you do that? Well, you got to improve. How do you do that? Well, you got to work on it. Absolutely.
Brock Spear told me years ago, he said, son, the day that you stop learning is the day that you need to come off the road.
Mm-hmm.
And, up until he got sick, Brock, up in his 80s, every week was taking vocal lessons.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. A lot of folks don't realize that. So they were honing their craft. They were staying on top of it. And that's what makes you better artist.
The brand new song to radio, The Healer Hasn't Lost His Touch, which is really apropos for this time. Although I think it was actually released prior to the heated part of this COVID-19 situation. But what led to that being the song that you released to radio?
Well, I think, that is a very interesting, that's a great question. We actually had another song, Tiffany, that we were looking at. I went to Tiffany and said, you know what, this is a song that I think we need to release. I spoke to our producer, Wayne. This is the song. So we talked about it, and I think Tiffany called me. It was about a week later, and she said, hey, we have another song that we think we need to send out. You got a new member, the new voice. Let's let the world know what he is with Tribute Quartet, which is Gus Gaches. And the Healer Hasn't Lost His Touch. And I'm thinking, okay, because that was the very first song that I put on hold for that album. Matter of fact, I had it 2 years on hold. That's how strong I felt about the song. But I thought we would release it later down the road. So I said, that's great. Let's do it. So in saying all that, Robert, God had a plan. It was a song for this time, through everything, the tornadoes that took place, now the COVID. It was just timely. God had a better plan than we did.
Indeed. Tiffany, I mean, what prompted you to ask that they consider releasing a different song to radio?
Well, as we've mentioned, it is a team effort. And every time it's time for a new single, we listen through the project again and try to have fresh ears. And, as Gary mentioned, featuring Gus, the message of the song was just fantastic. I mean, there's just not anything negative you can say about that song. And come to find out, many people felt the same way. The song actually made it to #1 on the Sing News charts for the month of May. That's right. Yeah. So we were very thrilled to see that others felt the same way and felt strongly and supported the song the way that they did.
What's next?
We received messages, Robert, all across the country. I mean, other countries saying, we received a email after we did the Hope Sing, a live video, concert that we did with Hope Sing. And this couple said we were ready to give up. We was ready to give up life, everything, until we heard that song.
Song may have been just for them. Who knows?
Absolutely.
But it touched others as well. That's for sure. So is the next song coming out for Tribute Quartet the one, Gary, that you wanted originally?
No.
Maybe next time.
It was funny. Greg Goodman and the record company called me and said, we think this song is so timely. We can't get it out of our spirit. This is what we need to do. And my goodness, what perfect timing for this song, because it simply says, fear not. And we are living in a time where there's so many people that are fearful. And so it just went out to radio just a couple weeks or so ago, and we're thrilled about it. So maybe one of these days I'll get my song in there.
Get your song. That's right. Give me a little backstory on Fear Not. Who wrote it?
Oh, that was Tony Wood, Kenna West, and Wayne Hahn. Our producer Wayne Hahn is also a songwriter, and he was a part of that song. We're not in on that songwriting process, so we can't speak a lot to that. However, even choosing that song, we actually had that song. We didn't have it on hold for 2 years, but the project prior, Here For You, we really liked that song, but it didn't work out for that particular record. So we just kept holding on and kept watching to see if anybody else would take it, and no one took it. And so this album came along, and we decided to grab it. And we just liked it's a great song, great message, great group. And then all of a sudden, all of this happens, and there again, we have this timely song that speaks to on a deeper, not a deeper, but a very deep level to the situation the world is in right now. And it's what do you say when you don't have a whole lot in the songwriting process, but you decided to take,
Well, I will say this. We performed at the Dove Awards in 2017.
Yeah.
2017, we performed at the Dove Awards. While we were on the platform performing, When the Prodigal Comes Home, I just kept feeling in my spirit, we need to do Fear Not. We got to have that song. And while we're at the Dove Awards performing, I'm feeling this. We walk off the platform. We get done with the afternoon show. I'll walk straight in and see Wayne Hahn. And I said, this is 2017. Do not give this song to anybody. We want that for the next project. So really, we almost did have it on hold, not officially, but I said, don't show it to nobody.
Well, lady and gentlemen, thanks so much for sharing with us. And the Tribute Quartet, great music. I love the stuff and look forward to, there's some projects when they come out, you're just anticipating that new song from an artist. And that's the case with Tribute Quartet. Some great music. And we thank you for it.
Robert, thank you, and thank you to WTJT. Everybody listening out there, thank you for what you do for gospel music and for Tribute Quartet. God bless you.
You as well. Thanks again, Josh Singletary, Gary Casto, Tribute Quartet, and Tiffany Noeker from Daywind. We appreciate you being with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless.
Thanks, Robert.